What's going on, y'all? So today we've got a nice, I'm not even going to say a little project. I've been working on this last night. We've got a nice big project, and it's going to be obviously of these rather large branches that I have. Give me one second. And I'm going to be adding another one so that I can get all this water. So basically, what I have is drop down branches and the reflections in the water. And it's not the easiest to see because of the quality of the camera, but in a nutshell, I'm going to be teaching y'all a little bit about creating depth when you've already got something out in front by putting something right behind here. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to have another drop down branch come down, and it's going to be submerged in the water at one point. So it'll only show like two different points. So it'll show the tip, which is going to be like right around this area. It's going to be poking up right around this like that, and then have a little reflection of the same like this. And then it'll have a big one coming down right here, and it'll show right where it catches under the water. And it will have that other reflection coming right down this way. So, without any further ado, let us begin and have fun. And I'm just going to be using a palette knife for this one because I was not sure last night what to do with it, with this big canvas, and I painted it all black. So I thought about painting one of my dreams that I had done, or that I had a while back, which was a branch with cherry blossoms on it. Shout out to Sheila because she's always painting cherry blossoms. And speaking of which, good to see you, Sheila. And what happened in the dream was basically there was a person holding a very, very large or long and skinny branch. However, this does not look like it. It's not as skinny as this branch, or it's not as thick as this branch. It was real skinny, probably like a quarter that size, and it had all sorts of little pink blossoms coming out of it. But it was a painting. It looked like a painting. It didn't look like the actual cherry blossom branch. So it was very interesting, and it was lowered to the water level, but it all looked like it was like just solid black canvas, kind of like this. So I tried to replicate it last night, failed miserably, but it still looked pretty good. So I decided to keep on going with it and even add to it. It's something new, something very new. It could go any which direction, to be totally honest, but I'm going to turn it into like a 15-minute showing y'all how to add depth. Maybe 20 minutes. We'll see how much time I have. Been pretty busy lately, and on top of that, tomorrow morning I have to get up super early. Fun times. But I'm very excited to work on this. It's first. Hey Jennifer, good to see you. Thanks for jumping on. So right now I'm just going to get crimson and phthalo blue in large amounts. And I'm going to keep them relatively close to each other so that I can just use them regularly and liberally, because most of this, I carved all this out with phthalo blue and crimson, and then just a smidge of yellow. Just finished a calf's head painting. I'd like to see that. Post it and I'll take a look at it. Super excited for that. Maybe I'll add a bird to this or something. Probably not, but maybe. If I can do it with a palette knife, I'll do that. A calf's head. I think I've painted a steer. I've never painted a calf's head. And I painted what was supposed to be a cow, but ended up looking like a lamb or a sheep or something. Called it the contented cow. It did not look like a cow. Just nope. I did not paint a very good cat. let's jump right into this. And the objective is to get it to be cooler on the bottom. Well, actually just warm. So mostly crimson. Crimson is pretty predominant when you're mixing together, or at least it needs to be. So add more crimson than you do phthalo blue. That way you can get as much as you can towards the warmer side, because you want the temperature of the insides to be warm so that you can put cool underside bark under it. That looks almost a green, but not quite. Ah! I'm wearing it again. Well, if you're not wearing it, you're not doing it right. I have to wipe myself off. Waste not. Oh well. So right now I'm just mixing up a nice purple color until I get all the crimson and the blue mixed together properly to a warmer temperature, and then I'm going to mix in some yellow to make it more towards the brown side. So it's not quite a purple on the underside. It's more of a like a very, very reddish brown is what you're trying to go for. So be very liberal with that crimson, not so much on phthalo blue. Okay, that was pretty close. So once you get it close enough to how you want it, that's when you're just going to start adding in bits and pieces of yellow here and there. There's a lot of paint. So if you look at my palette, super, super thick. All that is paint, is the purple paint that you're going to be using. Oh, goodness, I'm falling over. Let's see, your painting will be beautiful with the cherry blossom on a background, on a black background. So that painting in particular is not going to be for a minute. I don't intend to paint this one with cherry blossoms yet. This one is going to be strictly just the bark until I finish adding in the other branch, and I might just leave it as bark and afterwards. Not sure. We will see how it goes, to be totally honest. This one has no yellow. I need yellow. I don't know where to put my yellow, but I'll use my extra tube. So I'm getting a rather large line of yellow in there. That way I can just take a look. That big strip, that's all my yellow. Because I've got such a massive amount of purple here, you need a rather large bit of yellow as well. So I'm just going to take like half of this little dab right here that I've got right here and mix it in just to see how it turns out. Because we don't want it to be super, super dominant. We want the yellow to be subtle and it to just appear as like a brown, like a dark red brown or reddish brown. Very, very dark. As for the rest of the phthalo blue, you can just take that, scoop it, move it off to the side. So, Sheila, to answer your question, I was talking about a dream that I had with cherry blossoms. And this was supposed to be that painting. However, um, the branches that I painted were a lot thicker than the branches that I saw in my dream. So this might not end up with cherry blossoms or anything on it. However, I might add a big flower right here. Just one. Maybe. Alright. So now what I'm doing is I'm just mixing up the browns. And since I have such a massive, ridiculous amount of paint, I'm kind of spreading it out. I'm going to kind of show y'all what I'm doing. Look at that. Look at that freaking glop. Isn't that massive? Just huge. It's a Bob Ross sized glop is what it is. It's on my hand. Get off. There we go. Nothing like oil paint on the pants. There we go. So, just grab all that and just mix it together until you get a kind of reddish brown consistency. And the way you can tell, easy way, you can just do Bob Ross style and just take a little bit of white, pull just a little bit of that, and then mix it together. And in my case, it doesn't look like the yellow got to the entire thing. So what I'm going to do is keep adding yellow until it turns into the brown consistency. Because we do not want it to turn into a purple. We don't want it to be a purple. We just want a subtle brownish red, or a reddish brown. There we go. So that's close enough. It looks pretty much black. Hey, Mom. Good to see you. So what I'm going to be doing is starting to block things in, which just means covering the canvas or covering up the shapes. And I'm going to start with the furthest one away. I'm going to start with the branch that's going to be kind of protruding from the water. And then I'll be working my way around to the branch that's going to be right around this area. And I may add another couple twigs or stuff, just kind of in this area, sticking up in front, just to add like a little bit more depth. But we don't need too much because it's just going to be mainly looking at two branches. Right. So we're just going to kind of play around with the textures right here. And you just kind of cut a little bit across and just start tapping and pulling. And you can just tap it on if you want, but I'm just tapping and pulling at this point, just so that I can save myself some time. And last night I was using the smaller edge just so I can get a lot more textures. Because if you do take smaller edges and then just kind of turn your knife, it changes the textures and the direction of the textures. So it looks more erratic and not as controlled and forced. And you want it to look kind of erratic and natural. Because in nature, you're not going to see stuff that are just like perfect symmetry. And it's very rare when you do. So I'm going to add one nice long branch right over the water, right over here. And we're going to have him kind of a curve upwards, maybe one little twiggy thing kind of out this way. We're going to have him sticking up like that. And then next thing, I'm going to kind of try to replicate that almost by going directly under. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's got to be close. So in this case, I'm paying attention to the angle at which I've already put it on there, and I'm trying to replicate what I've done on top. And as you can see down here, it does not look perfect, nor does it need to. It just needs to be close. The branch looks like it is coming off the canvas. It kind of does. When I stood back, it looked almost 3D. It was pretty cool. It wasn't necessarily intentional, but yeah, it happened. It's fun when those things happen. You just try to make something that you like, and you know, these things just sometimes take place. There we go. And then we'll have one little sticker out. Then I'm going to take the big side. I'm going to start walking in another guy. Maybe have him stick out right here and then kind of work our way around like this. Okay, so he's got to curve up like this. So I'm going to try to kind of follow the contours that I've already given myself. But there we go. Good. There. Kind of similar, not perfect, but close. That's all you need. Just close. And there's a kind of a roundish, like a curve upwards and a round curve down. So I'm going to follow that. Just like so. So here comes that round curve I was talking about. I'm going to take the smaller edge at this point because I want it a little bit more controlled. Just like that. So like this. We're going to come down. And around. Just like. And I'm going to kind of work around the branches that I've already done. This is an easy technique for anybody. This is one reason, like one of the few reasons why, or actually one of the main reasons why you kind of want to work from back to front, so that you can naturally create the depth and it's just easier. But we don't always do it the easy way. We're doing it the hard way today. So I'm just going to be tapping in the basic angles, a little just around this guy. And I'm going to actually leave most of this dark. And here's why. Because when I added this branch right here, when you look at a reflection, it shows the shadows under the branch. It doesn't show the highlights on top of the branch. So you got to pay attention to, okay, what does the colors right here look like? right at the bottom of this thing. That's what I've got to reflect and kind of think about what's going to be there. So in my case, I'm just going to kind of follow the idea I had here, which is the same darks that comprise this on the underside, but at the same time, I add green, a little bit more blue and yellow towards the bottom. So this one's going to be comprised of blue and yellow as well, more than crimson. When we go and mix our almost a highlight color. Yes. There we go. There we go. So following that same kind of contour right here, just going to flip that upside down, kind of go this way. I'm just going to reference it just slightly, just by going like this. Just drawing out myself a little sketch mark. So I've got it like that. So we'll start kind of touching and pulling that general direction. And then we'll have another kind of going like this, but he's gonna kind of flip around and do a little, almost a U shape. And because you're farther away from this one, and you've probably got a better view on this one, more of an eye level view, this is going to be more proportional. Notice how right here, I've kind of got it a little bit elongated. That's because you're closer to it. When you're closer to it and you're standing above it, it looks more like it's elongated. This, since it's further away, it looks a little bit taller. So that's what I'm going to be taking into consideration as well. Just a little tip for you. Okay. So you need to be here. And a little trick for y'all, when y'all are going to kind of replicate something, just kind of take a tool and use it as like a proportions tool. Like, say half of the blade equals up, or the whole blade comes from the base to this point right here. Do the same thing from the start of the reflection and go and measure it out and go, okay, so the tip, this right here, needs to go right here. I know it's kind of an advanced trick, but I think y'all can use that to your advantage. Feel free to share that with your friends if you want, or don't. I mean, it just helps everyone knowing different techniques and such. There we go. Yeah. There's that. there's this little twiggy thing right here, which I'm actually going to give a little bit more length. And he needs a little bit more thickness towards the bottom. There. Mm-hmm. And be sure you fill in all the cracks, because you want as much texture and thickness on there without showing the black that's right behind it. At least when you're painting the branches. Let's pull this out just. Okay, then what you can do, if you want, you don't have to, but what you can do is take a little bit of yellow, because this light is yellow. It's very, it's not very bright. What you can do is take just a little bit of yellow and add it with that kind of brownish color that you made earlier. Actually, probably a lot of yellow, because that's a pretty powerful color. And then what you can do is you can take that color and kind of draw yourself almost a cutting off line around this thing where the ripples would be, if you have ripples. You don't have to have them, but I'm just doing this for me. Just as a reference. And the next point, we're going to come down with the big branch right over here. Right up from the top corner and work our way down, probably right here. This painting doesn't need a whole bunch of depth, or whole bunch of depth, but this was to teach y'all how to do depth regardless. So let's see here. So this guy needs to come out like this. There we go. So this is the point where your depth trick comes in handy, or your proportions trick comes in handy. So if you happen to do what I just did, and your branch that you painted out here is too long, you can just add to this guy right here. Super easy way to grow your branch. Oh, and if you add some more twigs to it, just add that same one to the top and just kind of mirror it. That's the key with reflections, is like a mirror. Just kind of do the closest you can as proportional as possible to whatever's on the top, or if you add something to the bottom, just add it to the top, and vice versa. Super easy. Right now I'm just kind of pulling out all the bark that I already painted on there, because I can see this one's a little bit fatter. And even though it's a little bit more distorted, I'm just going to keep adding, giving them a little bit more girth. There, that's closer. And let me know if y'all can't hear me at any point. I know I've been having troubles with the mics lately. It's just been bugging up sometimes. Or I just flat out forget to turn the mic on. That's a lot of purple. we're doing good, people. We're wearing it. All right. So the next point before I add in the second tree is we're going to do little highlights on the bark. And we're going to start with kind of like middle tones, which is just brighter than the, just barely brighter than the shadows. And the way to do that is just add a lot more yellow to it. And start off with like a moderate amount and add it to however much crimson you intend to use, or purple as you intend to use for your highlight color. And we're only touching the top one. The bottom one, you're not going to touch for the highlights just yet. You wait until you get all of those highlights on the top first. The reason for that is when you go in and you add those, you know what areas are getting struck by light, and you can kind of resemble or kind of reflect it on the bottom, but because it's the bottom, you'll only see parts of it because the reflections won't show all of it. It'll only show the underside, which the underside most times doesn't show light. It shows shadows. So you'll have more shadows than light on the underside. So on this, you'll do more shadows than light. So I'm just going to kind of pull down or pull back upwards all these bark marks. So it kind of follows suit of what I've done to the bottom. Just pull down, so I'm going to pull up at an angle just to kind of keep consistent. And then I'm going into these highlight colors. And I'm going to be tapping in some light and see what we've got to work with. And it's barely light, so I'm going to keep adding yellow until I get what I want. There we go. All right. This is closer to what I wanted. There we go. So I'm just kind of touching with brown. And I'm letting it mix in occasionally, which is good. So I'm going to be tapping it. I'm going to be tapping and pulling against the bark wherever I see light. And the light source is coming from this direction, mostly. There's a little bit of light source on this side, but it's weaker. So whenever you see a light on that, it's going to be a lot less. It's going to be a lot more dim. Take that into consideration whenever you're doing your light sources, which directions you've already painted light sources on, and how extreme. So this side has a lot more light. So naturally this side's going to have a lot of light too. But the other direction, not as much, but it's there. So pay attention to your light sources. So I'm just following the bark lines that I've already made earlier. I'm kind of touching around the tops, or what I perceive to be the top of the branches, with some of this darker highlight, or the middle tones, if you want to call them that. And I'm just kind of touching the edges with that, and making sure I've got real darks on the bottom. And following suit with the entire thing. And I'm also making sure that, whenever I paint this, it looks very heavily textured, because palette knife paintings look best when you texture them heavy. Again, just following the contours of the light that's already there. And I'm also going to be adding a little extra branch just because I can. Right here, just a little tweak. So I'm just going to do the same thing to the bottom before I forget. So it's right up the top. So just going to follow that up just like that. Doesn't have to be perfect, just pretty close. There. So next line of business, since we've already established kind of a base coat, well actually, no, I missed a few spots. So I need to actually follow suit and do the same thing we've got right here. Kind of start following it back with some of that brown that we've already mixed. These brownish highlights. Go. And be sure to leave darks in there because it looks like bark when you leave the darks in between. Don't completely blot it out, even though it's very tempting, because the darks kind of make the lights look better. And then what I'm going to do, this is kind of something I figured out yesterday when you're doing reflections, is the light source is only going to be touching the tops of these branches. Or you're only going to be able to see the tops of these branches. or the edges of the light. So I'm just going to be tapping in kind of the edges with light, just a little bit, not much. All right, next line of business, I'm just going to go into some straight yellow so that we can get some of that Sirius light source in there. And we're just going to mix it into a little bit of the brownish color, just barely. Muddy up that yellow just a little bit. And start going in and adding more profound highlights. Not quite like the yellow that we have here, but pretty close. It's kind of like a muddy yellow or yellow ochre. And do the same on the bottom. So just a heads up, what I just did here, I kind of messed up. What I did was I added too much highlight. As you can see, there was only a thin amount. So I just took the darker color and just flopped it right over the top. Super easy fix. It's kind of like pen drawing, only better. Because pen drawing, whenever I make a mistake on that, I just draw over it and make something different. However, with this, since it's a palette knife painting, you can just scoop up some more paint, just plop it right on top of whatever you did, and turn it back into the shadows if you want. It's really convenient. Now that we've got this guy painted in, and I will be shooting a picture of the end result once this is all completed. But I'm going to be painting in the next big guy. Now that I've got this little branch or this little guy that's sticking out done, and I'm going to have one branch that's right about here, pretty close. Right about there is what I'm going to cut him in. What I want to do with this is I'm going to have a two-part for him. This one is going to be sticking up out of the water. And then kind of curving up and down. Then right back up. That's what we're going to do with that. Doesn't have to be fantastic looking because this is just blocking in the shadows and stuff in the bark. But you do want to get the angles right. And I'm going to be trying to kind of starting from the top and working my way down. That way you can kind of see the starting point and the finishing point, which I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here. Is basically just covering up all this, but I'm trying to make it have like shape and form. Kind of like this. These look 3D. I want this one to look 3D, at least as much as possible. So I'm going to start from top and work down. And work way around. Gonna have a kind of skinnier limb right here, or portion, I should say. And then he's gonna just kind of angle his way down. Now, mind you, I am using a bunch of paint. And this part is kind of interesting because this is going to be in the water, but the rest of it's not even going to touch the water. It's just going to kind of look a little bit ragged. And it's going to be hovering just like this one's hovering above the water. This one's going to be doing the same thing right here. And it's going to be coming up and out. And maybe I'll have another portion of it. Nah, I think this is good. Because these two branches are connected in the water. At least that's the kind of envision I had for it when I was starting this morning or yesterday night. And then kind of have it come. I'm going to kind of start it, make it look rounded outwards like this. I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. So first, let's put some bark right up here. And then we're going to come right up over that guy and then create the illusion that there's like even more bark. just like so. And it's all going to be working its way up. So I'm going to kind of cut it outwards, make it fatter, and project right out this way, and then kind of angle it out like it's coming down this way. And it helps to do these little touches and pulls to give it that barky texture and kind of change up your direction as well. You can always go back and do that later, but I'm going to do it right now just so I can kind of not have to do that. I like having gnarly tree branches because just normal ones, they're kind of boring. When you got a lot of textures in them and they got a lot of shape and directions that they point and swing, you know, it just looks nicer. So that's what I'm going to do. What kinds of branches do y'all like working on? I know that Sheila likes like really thin branches with a lot of leaves and stuff. I like leafless ones, unless I'm working on like a very, very colorful fall scene, in which case I'll throw in all sorts of oranges with for the leaves and yellows and reds and browns. Ooh, we can have it twisting upwards and over. That's a cool idea. Give it a little bit more depth than it already had. Didn't even think about that until just now. Just had a cool idea, just kind of going with it. Always be open to changing your ideas. So eventually I'm going to have it like that coming over, but I'm just going to finish up this branch real quick. Here we go. By the way, y'all, one of my friends, her name's Joanna. I know I already put a post out there, but y'all should check out the movie that she's going to be doing. She's playing in it as one of the, I think it's like one of the, not a side character, but one of the main character's friends or something. It looked like a very interesting movie when I was looking at the behind the scenes project. Like an older movie set in the 1800s or 19, like early 1700 or late 1700s. I don't know. It looked really good. Y'all should check it out whenever y'all get the chance. It's called Laura. It's a new film that's in development. It's kind of a mystery movie from what I understand, but I don't really know the the whole premise, so I'm not going to spill the beans on that until I get the okay that that's okay to do. To be totally honest, this painting kind of reminds me of a vine. Not really branches, not really like tree branches, but vines. I was having a conversation with someone about that earlier today, and I was like, well, they're branches, and they kind of resemble vines, but not quite. There. And be sure to leave a few little hanging twigs there, or little stipple, like little slits, like that, look, like this, because it just gives it interest. At least I think so. I enjoy that kind of stuff. If you don't like it, you don't have to add it. It's all about what you want to do. This will be interesting trying to get reflections of. I think the only one that I'm going to add a reflection to is this branch right here, because this one's a little bit too tall. To be totally honest, you can kind of just elongate them if you want. Change up your bark patterns. You're going to go back to sporadic if you want. There. Just change it up. Makes it look interesting. Makes it look nicer. Change up those angles, because trees and bark in the real world is not perfect, and it's unpredictable. Here we go. I think this one we might add flowers to, or we might just do it right here. Have one flower just kind of sticking up right out the side. Maybe a small bud. I don't know. We shall see. Just ideas. I'm not going to do anything super complex because it's a palette knife painting and it just looks better with texture. You can add something that's kind of a little heavier in texture and complex, but I'd prefer not to. I like them simple. All right, now to go down to the reflections. I'm just going to kind of be getting the basic shape there. And then I'm going to put the bark and texture on it afterwards, just because of simplicity. and for the sake of time. There we go. Just out of reach. And just over the water. Let me know if I'm in the way. I'm going to try to be out of the way as much as possible. There we go. Okay. Just ran out of crimson. So this is all I'm going to be doing for tonight. I will keep y'all updated. So tomorrow I'm going to end up going. I'm actually not going to be able to stream tomorrow, more than likely, unless my work frees me up really easily. This week has been pretty crazy busy, and I have to get up super early. So it was a pleasure seeing y'all again, and I hope y'all got the opportunity to learn something that you didn't already know. And on that note, I am going to call it. Y'all have a wonderful evening. God bless y'all, and I love y'all. Bye.